first I found out actually when I was in school, and in Germany it's mandatory. It's government mandated that all schools teach the Holocaust. It usually starts in sixth, seventh grade, and you find out about these things. And then one day we talked about Auschwitz, and the teacher, and I think I was in seventh grade, mentioned the name Huss. Now that sounds like my name. So I went home that day and I said, Mom, tell me, does he have anything to do with us? And she said, yeah, it's your granddad. I said, I couldn't believe it, right? And now, I mean, who wants to have Rudolf Höss as his granddad? I didn't go around telling people, hey, I'm the grandson of the greatest mass murderer in human history. So I just kept it quiet. I mean, no one asked me. No one picked up on it, or they did. They were just polite. I don't know, but it never came up. But I felt pretty guilty. I felt ashamed. And, I talked to students about this recently when I was here at a big college, vocational college. I said, if you had a criminal in your family, like your uncle or, whatever, even a brother, how would you tell people? Would you make a big thing about it and kind of tell everybody about it? Obviously not, because you're ashamed, right? And so I was ashamed, very much so. It was never discussed. I never leaned towards fascism or anti-Semitism, because my dad never did. My family, they did acknowledge that it was wrong, So yeah, I just grew up like that. I kept it a secret until I read the book. I was 16, 17, and I read that book and I thought, wow, this is incredible. I mean, I understood what he did. And then I had some kind of turnkey experiences along the way after I got saved. God impacted me. I remember once we had been back in Germany, and we were going to another church our first 2 years back in Germany in 2003 or 2002, and the American military invited me to just give my testimony at a big it was like a U.S. military retreat, and there were like 200 soldiers, mostly special forces guys. And so I had a mini sermon and a devotional, and plus my testimony. And this big man gets up at the very back, and I forgot his name. He gets up, this huge guy, this Marine comes down the steps, and it was a really intimidating man. And he comes down to the speaker podium, and he puts his arms out and he embraces me. He takes me in his arms and he whispers in my ear, said, "Brother, I love you. I forgive you. All my family was murdered in Auschwitz." He was Jewish, obviously, a part of the U.S. military here in Germany. And so I had these experiences where knowing who I was, I started thinking, how can I give something back? How can I do something I know I can't make it undone. I can't reverse history, but I thought, I can do something. I can just love them. And what I can do, I can proclaim the truth from God's word. Before I got saved, back when I was in my teens, right, and I read the book, obviously my parents never talked about it, as I mentioned earlier. It was a secret. Well, they mentioned it, but we didn't discuss it. It was never worked through. And so reading the book, his memoirs that he wrote, in his, like a year and a half before he was executed in Auschwitz in Poland. And I read his, just the clinical way how he describes this project. And how he did things. Even he himself put hands. He shot a woman. He helped putting children into the gas chamber to be an example, little babies. And I read this out recently. Actually, I read 3 passages out in a school that I was giving a presentation on this topic, and I saw students having tears rolling down their cheeks because they just can't believe this. And so I was back. You're asking that question. Yes, back in those days, I wasn't a Christian, but I was from a humanistic point of view, perspective. I was touched. I was heartbroken. But even being not being a believer, right? You just read this. Just imagine you're shoveling bodies into gas chambers every day, thousands of people, and you just murdered them. And I was in Auschwitz 3 years ago filming for the Commandant's Shadow when we went there with the film crew, and I saw those platforms, those train station platforms, and it's crazy. Do you have one platform after another, and trains would roll in from all over Europe with cattle wagons, full of people. Some of them had already died. And so when they came off the thing, they were left. There was left and there was right. Left was children, pregnant women, and the aged that couldn't work. And they told them, listen, guys, we're going to clean you up. You're going to get some medical attention. Don't worry. And right was those that would go and work in the camp, in the labor camp. Those on the left, an hour later, there was smoke. Can you imagine that? And I stood there, and I have 4 kids, and I was thinking, my little ones, imagine little kids are separated from mommy and daddy, and they're screaming, They don't know what's going on. This is their only security in life is mom and dad. And here they're being separated to be murdered. And it broke my heart. When I read this as a 16, 17-year-old kid, I just cried. It broke my heart. But the real understanding obviously came later when I understood the grace of God after I get saved. And I understand that grace is unmerited favor that I have received simply by putting my faith in Jesus Christ. I tell people that God sent his son. We cannot be righteous in our own strength. We cannot qualify before God by our own strength, by our own goodness, because none of us are good. We're all sinners. We're all sinners. We all walked away. We're all gone astray. But God sent Jesus into this world. He sent his only begotten son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish and have everlasting life. And then I look at Paul. I tell people, hey, people in our church, there are Christians that struggle, thinking, well, have I lost my salvation now, or am I somehow condemned because I didn't do the right thing? I think of John, right? In 1 John chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, and he's talking to Christian in Ephesus in Asia Minor, and he says, guys, if you say you have no sin, you're a liar and the truth is not in you. But if you confess your sin, I'm not just talking a flippant, hey, sorry, God, I'm okay. No, I'm talking heartbroken like David was in Psalm 51. He said, if you confess your sin, then God is faithful and just to forgive you your sin and to cleanse you from all unrighteousness. And then you look at a guy like Paul, the Apostle Paul. Isn't it incredible? At the very end of his life in Timothy, he talks to Timothy, writes to Timothy, he says, I, Paul, chief of sinners. When you can imagine a man like Paul who could say, well, I know, look what I've achieved. And he says, no, I'm the chief of sinners. And Paul had blood on his hands. He was, in fact, sort of a mini mass murderer. He went after the Christians all over Asia, all over the Middle East, even on the way to Damascus in Syria. He was trying to bring the Christians back to be persecuted and tried and probably stoned, murdered, killed, executed. So what I tell people, look, God's grace is sufficient.